The other day we made a video about the most luxurious prisons, which let me tell you, prison is not a luxurious thing. Criminals normally act like they're untouchable and can get away with anything, but the law has a different plan for them. So welcome back to Top 5 Central everyone, where today we're looking at 5 criminals turned crybabies. Leave a like on the video if you hate crime, and subscribe for a free Monopoly get out of jail free card. I mean man, who knew it actually works in real life? But anyways, let's start with number 5. So I think we could all agree that sometimes famous people can be let off easy when it comes to the law. With that said, I've got to give this judge serious credit because she didn't let this guy get away with anything. I mean, Tony Farmer was one of basketball's brightest stars at the time, so when he was accused of assaulting his ex-girlfriend, they could have just let him off easy. Instead, he ended up with a combined sentence of almost 3 years, and let's just say he didn't react to it too well. Right from the start, he was whispering to people and looked close to crying, but it got worse when he was actually sentenced. When the first count was announced, he literally dropped to the floor and curled up in a ball, and that was before the rest of his jail time was even announced. Honestly, considering he was found guilty of dragging his girlfriend by the hair and hitting her, it's kinda hard to feel bad for him taking a sentence so hard. Plus, he could always apply for early release after 180 days, so he probably didn't even have to serve his whole sentence.
Shall serve a term of 2 years on that count as well.
Number 4. You know the phrase, don't do the crime if you can't do the time? Well, it definitely applies here. I mean, if you're prepared to do something as horrific as open fire while on a college campus, then you've got to be prepared for some serious jail time. With that said, Brandon Spencer apparently wasn't. He was accused of opening fire on a rival gang member at a Halloween party, which isn't something you just get away with. However, when it came time for sentencing, it was super obvious that the guy wasn't ready to accept the consequences of his actions. Seriously, the guy was rocking back and forwards in his chair and sobbing, and he literally begged the judge for mercy. He kept repeating over and over again that he couldn't do life in prison, and he was actually a good guy who made a mistake, but the judge either didn't listen or didn't care. In the end, he was sentenced to 40 years to life in prison, and he did not react well to that either. He ended up smacking his head on the table over and over again, but at least we know that if he ever gets out, he'll probably be way too scared to commit another crime. Number 3. Now the thing about this story is that it's already pretty shocking, but it gets more horrific the more details you know. I mean, murder is already one of the worst crimes there is. Murdering a child is even worse. The thing is, this crime gets even worse than that, because this guy killed a kid less than 2 years old by beating him to death with his bare hands. Apparently, this 17-year-old was babysitting, and when the kid wouldn't stop crying, he completely lost it. With that said, when he showed up to court, he seemed genuinely remorseful and was sobbing and telling people how bad he felt about losing control. Now, would you believe him? Well, I've got to admit, I actually did at first. However, the judge read out something that he had said on the phone after being arrested, and it completely changed my mind. The teenager straight up said that he was a young blonde white kid, and all he'd have to do to get let off is cry. Well, cry he definitely did, but it didn't stop the judge from sentencing him to 25 years to life in jail. Number 2. So far, all the people on this list have been men, but you don't have to be a man to commit a crime and regret it. This 33-year-old woman ended up breaking down in the courtroom after she was sentenced for killing a man during a robbery, and she did not take it that well. To be more specific, she was actually accused of manslaughter, and the man she accidentally killed was 72 years old. His death was caused when she tried to break into his house, and as a result, she was convicted of manslaughter in the first degree. Her sentence ended up being 21 years plus 5 years of supervision, but it's hard to hear the sentencing over her crying. To be fair, it does look like she's trying to keep quiet and stay calm, but pretty soon she's crying so loudly that it almost sounds like she's screaming. As for the judge, he doesn't even skip a beat. He just starts listing off all the tiny fees she'll have to pay that go along with her jail time.
33-year-old April Stone, as you just saw and heard sobbing, was sentenced to 21 years to life in prison for first-degree manslaughter. She pleaded guilty to killing 72-year-old Lincoln Burks during a robbery at his Cornwall Avenue apartment.
Okay, here's our honorable mention. I've said already that murder is one of the worst crimes there is, but if the person you kill is also a police officer, well, people are gonna see that as much worse. So with that said, it's not really surprising that this guy completely broke down in court, because it was obvious to everybody that he was gonna spend a long time in jail. I mean, at first this guy pleaded guilty to aggravated murder, but then he withdrew his plea, so he ended up kind of in limbo just waiting for things to move forward. The thing is, his time in the jail where he was being kept made it clear how he'd be treated after sentencing, and he really didn't like it. Like, the dude started crying and explaining that prison officers weren't treating him fairly, and that he could ask and ask for court documents and not receive them. He got so emotional, and he even said that he'd rather be executed than deal with the stress anymore, although by the looks of it, his lawyer was quick to tell him to shut up after that. Number 1. There are some crimes that are basically unforgivable, and child abuse is right at the top of that list. With that said, even though these two women 100% deserve their sentence, just be warned that the footage is a little hard to watch. Basically, the two women were looking after a 3-year-old girl when she had an accident, and they decided that she needed to be punished. They beat her with both coat hangers and a belt, and when she lost consciousness, they put ice on her body and bleach under her nose to revive her. With that said, she never woke up, and she died from her injuries way before medics could get to her. Obviously, the crime is horrific, and even though both women said they didn't know what they'd done would kill her, the judge wasn't having any of it. They were both sentenced to life in prison, and reacted by falling to the ground at the exact same time. Like, one looks like she completely loses consciousness and has to be wheeled out, and the other is on the floor sobbing. Even the families are screaming and have to be held in their chairs, which just proves that the woman hurt way more than just their victim. And there's our video on the top 5 criminals turned crybabies. If you enjoyed the video, please feel free to leave a like down below and subscribe so you see whenever I upload a video. Also, if you have your own top 5 or top 10 idea, feel free to search my handy form in the description to submit it. With that said, thank you all for watching, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.